Ministry of Education, Women Affairs, Industry, Trade, Interior, Water Resources, National Stadium, right? All these places, they said they are owing. And as of today, to further commemorate the protest, the indefinite strike today, they have been shut down. But what does it even matter? When the TCN staff have already shut down the national grid. As it is right now, there is no electricity in Nigeria, except for some alternatives who probably have theirs off the normal grid. If your electricity is from the national grid, there is no electricity in Nigeria as we speak. Anyway, it's not only that they were not being paid, they were even being owed the service that they rendered, the money that has been budgeted and stolen, possibly. So that is the state of Nigeria as we speak. So those of you who are the unemployed youth, they were promised cassava gari and cassava gari beans. It's been a year now. More people have now joined you. You know the abracadabra that Tinubu did, the fraud. Currently, the unemployment rate in Nigeria is over 60%. Now, before then, it was over 40%. Tinubu came in 2 days or 3 days after. They said, oh, that metric they are using to measure who is employed, who is not employed is not right. They came up with their figure. Right now, the Tinubu and code says Nigerians are fully employed. In fact, only 4% of them don't have job. It's been over a year. But you could tell. Reminder.
And we are competing with armed robbers and the bandits to recruit from the youths who are unemployed. 33% unemployed. Recruit 50 million youths into the army and the other thing. Take away from their recruitment source. What they will eat? Cassava, agbado, corn in the morning, yam in the afternoon. It's growing here. You create demand and consumption. For over 5 million army of boot camps. We create our food. That's money for the farmers. That's consumption for the soldiers and skill development. Don't call them illiterate. Don't talk about illiteracy. Anybody who can own gun, who can handle gun, who can cock gun and clean the chamber and cock and shoot is technically competent to repair a tractor in the farm.
It is smoke Igbo. It is taking Indian.
Also, about 18 months ago, Tinubu also promised all the so-called Yahoo boy that it will train you how to make chips. It didn't say which one, maybe a plantain chips or something. It's also been a year.
Turn the so-called Yahoo boys to experts in manufacturing and creation of chips that intercept an organ.
The chip that intercept man. Anyway, all of that is now coming crashing. I won't beat it any further. So, day one of NLC says strike. I will probably get more recap for us later this evening. However, we have just about 90 minutes to continue the reading of our white malice. If you have been following it, okay? So this is also going on now to the chapter 7 of the reading. Now, if you haven't really listened to the reading from the beginning, okay, it's ideal that after watching this, you can actually catch up, all right, on this. In the diary, just open it, you will see from where we started, okay? So we have a lot of books here. They are pretty much like revisiting the history. But in this particular book, it is set to review the infiltration of the freedom or independence movement of independent fighters in the 50s in Africa, how they got infiltrated by the CIA. It's an interesting read, and indeed, it's recommended by one of us here. We have a lot of others, okay? So I am going to try and see if I can get to read the chapter 7. And if we have maybe a few more minutes, then I may take calls. And if there is no time, then we can shift all of that to the evening. So thank you to you all. And I'm going to start now. So chapter 7. Give me a sec. And chapter 7, White Malice, the CIA and the neocolonization of Africa. So atomium. In the same year that the All African People's Conference in Accra celebrated the prospect of Africa's liberation from European colonization, a contrasting event took place in Europe. An international exhibition that put a bright spotlight on the Belgian colonization of the Congo. The event was Expo 58, the Exposition Universelle et Internationale de Bruxelles, also known as the Brussels World Fair, which was held between April and October 1958. Rooted in the tradition of the Great Exhibition that was held in the Crystal Palace in London in 1851, it was the first international exhibition since the Second World War. Expo 58 was vast. It covered nearly 500 acres on the Aisel Plateau, just north of the city of Brussels. 44 nations participated, and about 18 million people came through its gates. King Baudouin of Belgium opened the exhibition, drawing attention to his slogan, "A world for a better life for mankind." Its major theme was the application of technology and science to make the world more humane. The pavilions of the United States and the Soviet Union were placed next to each other, which had the effect of drawing attention to the increasingly bitter Cold War. The Soviet pavilion put the achievement of Sputnik, the first satellite in space, at its center and celebrated communist society. At the US pavilion, which showcased the American way of life and consumer society, visitors could watch color television, eat ice cream, and drink Coca-Cola. "We don't intend to use the ad said the US Commissioner General. We don't think we have to, not in selling America." 7 of the Belgian pavilions were dedicated to the country's colonial possessions: the Belgian Congo and Rwanda, Burundi, now Rwanda, Burundi. They presented exhibitions on a range of activities, including the colonial administration, agriculture, Catholic missions, energy and transport, banks, insurance companies, and commerce. Congolese workers were brought to Brussels to display their method of work. Tobacco industry employees made cigarettes all day long, while potters, winnowers, and sculptors demonstrated their skills. Soldiers and so-called evolus were also put on show. A theater in the Congo section presented Kongorama, a 30-minute show with visual effects to plunge the viewers into the disturbing ambience of primitive life. Using film, sound recordings, and animated maps, it aimed to present the different states of the Congo's progress from the night of prehistory to the light of civilization. Its message was clear. The light of civilization had been provided by Belgium. There was also a live version of Kongorama. Nearly 600 Congolese people, 183 families, including 273 men, 128 women, and 197 children, had been brought to Belgium to be put on daily display in 7 acres of tropical gardens. Every day, they were bussed in from their lodgings and exhibited in a so-called village indigene, native village of straw huts behind a bamboo perimeter fence. They were expected to carry out traditional village activities, including craft work. This was effectively a zoo, but of human beings. 6 decades before Expo 58, in 1897, King Leopold II of Belgium had organized a display of people from the Congo in the village of Taverne, just outside Brussels, in conjunction with Brussels International Exposition of that year. 300 Congolese people were exhibited in a village behind fences with notices instructing visitors not to feed them. 7 died. Despite the evils perpetrated by Leopold II, the former king was celebrated at Expo 58. A bust representing him was placed at the entrance to the main Congo pavilion. Underneath it were written the words he had used to describe his purpose in Africa. I undertook the work of the Congo in the interest of civilization. When King Baudouin, the great-grandnephew of Leopold II, visited the native village at Expo 58, he greeted the Congolese from a distance with a reserved wave of his hand. He did not talk to them. Every day, foreigners and Belgians came to watch the activities of the Congolese. Children tried to give them bananas, and many passers-by threw insults and money at them. But some of the visitors criticized the display. The Congolese were packed there like livestock, objected one, and exhibited as curious beasts. A newspaper reported an encounter wherein a white Belgian woman threw half a candy bar to a boy of about 2 or 3 years of age, which landed between his knees. His response was swift. Right away, without the least hesitation, the boy throws the titbit back over the fence without even looking up. Within 3 months, the Congolese in the native village had had enough and went home. The huts were left empty. But numbers of other Congolese people remained in Brussels for the duration of Expo 58. These were nuns, journalists, dancers, singers, soldiers. A choir known as Les Troubadours were celebrated for their performance of the Missa Luba, a Latin mass sung according to Congolese harmonies and traditions. For several years, small group of evolus had been allowed to take educational trips to Belgium, as Lumumba had done. But now, hundreds of Congolese, including a large group of soldiers, were invited for stays of a few months to visit the expo. My father was allowed to go to Belgium in 1958, recalled James Kolonga. He was very impressed by what he saw. Europeans who washed dishes and swept the streets. He didn't know that existed. There were even white beggars. That was a real eye-opener for him. The Congolese visitors saw that they were welcomed in the restaurants, cafes, and movie theaters of Brussels. That, too, was very different from the daily segregation they experienced in the colony. The Congolese visitors to Expo 58 not only discovered a different Belgium, but they also discovered each other. Until now, restrictions on travel and the long distances in the Congo had meant there was little contact between residents of the various regions. But during those months in Belgium in 1958, people from different parts of the vast territory talked with each other about the situation at home and dreamed of a different future. A number of Evolus were approached by Belgian politicians and trade union leaders from different sides of the political spectrum. The star soccer player of the daring football club in Leopoldville, Longin Ungwadi, who was nicknamed the Rubber Band, came to Brussels as a servant to the current Governor General, Leo Petillon, but was not able to go to the expo site. We went by plane, he recalled in an interview. I went along as Petillon's houseboy. I stayed in Namur and had to cook and do the laundry. Petillon went to the World's Fair and had to to the World Fair to look at all the merchandise, copper, diamonds, everything from Congo, everything from every country. But while Petillon was dining in Brussels with the Duke of Edinburgh and the Dutch Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ungwadi remained behind in the kitchen in Namur. The Daring Club was the top soccer team in the Congo. It had made the Angolan holding Roberto, like Ungwadi, a gifted player, a national icon when he moved to Leopoldville in 1949. Another well-known player in the Daring Club was Cyril Adola, who was later to become Prime Minister of the Congo. One of the Congolese journalists who went to Expo 58 in Brussels was the 28-year-old Joseph Desire Mobutu. Highly intelligent, eager, ambitious and charming. He had been given the name of his great uncle, Mobutu Sese Seko Nkuku Wazabanga, all-conquering warrior who goes from triumph to triumph. His father, who was a catechist and a cook for the Capuchin missionaries, had died when he was 8. This caused problems during Mobutu's childhood, as his widowed mother struggled to support her children. In some ways, Mobutu was like Patrice Lumumba. At school, he had stood up to teachers when he felt they were unjust. He was an avid reader and student. He disliked Catholic missionaries, and he was very thin and nearsighted. After 1 year of secondary education, he joined the Force Publique, the colonial troops of the Belgian Congo, as a secretary typist. In 1954, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant. He then, again, like Lumumba, began writing articles for publications. In 1956, Mobutu left the army to become a full-time journalist and went to Leopoldville, where he wrote for Actualites Africains and the daily newspaper, L'Avenir. During this period, George Uzongola Untalaja. Mobutu was hired as an informer for the Belgian intelligence service. After 2 years of this work, Mobutu was invited to Expo to represent the two journals at the Congrès de la Presse Coloniale, an international congress of the colonial press. It had also been arranged for him to be trained in intelligence in Brussels under the cover of training in social work. On the plane to Brussels, Mobutu sat next to a Belgian journalist who later recalled that Mobutu seemed a bit anxious and plied him with questions about Belgium. At the Congress, the journalist introduced Mobutu to people. His curiosity was insatiable. He wanted to visit everything, see everything, and understand everything. Mobutu picked things up fast, and after a few days, he got on fine. Clever and amusing, he easily charmed journalists who sought him out to ask questions about the Congo. With the rising tide of African nationalism having hit the Congo, wrote Nzogola Untalaja, Belgian and US policymakers were anxious to know who was who among the emergent politicians. The visitors to Brussels were scrutinized carefully. Mobutu quickly caught the eye of an American working at the US. An American working at the US Embassy in Brussels, Lawrence Raymond Devlin, generally known as Larry, a veteran of World War II and a Harvard graduate who by then was in his mid-late 30s. Devlin had been attached to the US Embassy since March 1957 as an attaché and political officer, but his position at the embassy was a cover. In fact, he was working for the CIA. Devlin retained Mobutu's services as an informer. Mobutu was now working for both the Belgians and the Americans. The Congo and Rwanda-Urundi pavilions and the Congolese village were located in the shadows, almost at the foot of the centerpiece of Expo 58, the Atomium, the futuristic buildings. Brussels answers to Paris, Eiffel Tower of 1889 is a 355-foot tall structure resembling the 9 atoms of a crystal of iron enlarged 160 billion times. The Atomium showcased the Belgian nuclear industry, of which the nation was extremely proud. The true origin and the reason for this industry was the Hinkolobwe uranium mine. One sec. Hang on. I hope you are listening, right? Because sometimes when I'm reading that way, I just concentrate on the reading on the book. So I hope the audio is still perfect. Indeed, this is just history that a lot of us from this generation need to know, like word for word, fact for fact, so that when we are making requests, when we're making, when we are making demand for a better continent or our own country and the rest, we should never forget that our forebearers had the same vision, but there were those who ensured that that vision never see the light of the day, and those people are still around till today. So be very careful of who you call for help or who you seek for support, because you might be sleeping with your enemy, so to say. So yeah, thank you. So let us continue. Not far from the Atomium was an exhibit organized by Union Miniere du Haut Katanga, the multinational company that owned Kinkolobwe, to demonstrate how the uranium was mined. In addition, Bergonuclear, a research bureau associated with Union Miniere, presented its program for the design and construction of reactors. There had been a plan to build a nuclear power station at Expo 58 to supply the site with electricity, but this was